Imagine that the piece of chocolate you enjoy took months of work and amazing techniques to prepare, but what's the secret behind its enchanting shine and perfect melt in your mouth? In this video, we will take you behind the scenes to discover the secrets of chocolate making step by step, from the bean to the bar. Get ready to learn about details you never imagined before. Cocoa beans are the essential ingredient for making chocolate. These beans come from the fruit of the cocoa tree, which grows in Central and South America. In ancient Mayan civilization, they would grind the beans to prepare a drink used for special occasions like weddings and rituals. Today, cocoa is grown in tropical regions around the world. The cocoa beans cultivated in Costa Rica are produced organically, without the use of fertilizers or chemical pesticides. Organic cocoa farming requires special care, including grafting techniques, that help create disease-resistant trees. The grafting process is done by taking a small seedling from a healthy, fruitful tree and attaching it to a branch from another old or diseased tree. A slit is created in the branch, and then the seedling is fixed using plastic tape to maintain moisture. After that, the end of the seedling is inserted into the cut and tied with plastic bags to protect it from drying out or excessive rain. If the process is successful, the branch will unite with the seedling within a few months or less. To ensure the strength of the tree and ease of maintenance, strategic pruning is used to keep the tree low and strong. The flowers are pollinated by small beetles, and then small fruits, known as pods, begin to appear. The pods grow gradually and change color as they ripen. When the color changes completely, they are ready for harvest. There are many types of cocoa trees, and each type has different colors of pods. Typically, it takes about 5 months for the pods to ripen from the time the flowers appear. During harvest, only the ripe pods are collected because the unripe pods contain cocoa beans. The workers carefully cut the stem of the pod to ensure that the cocoa tree is not damaged. The shell of the pod is thick and rough, and they open it using knives to extract the fruit inside the pod. There is a sweet-tasting casing containing 30 to 50 white cocoa beans. The beans and casing are collected and transported to the fermentation area. Here, the beans are placed in bins or piles and covered for 4 up to 6 days. During fermentation, the natural sugars react with oxygen, and the pulp decomposes to become liquid, which changes the color and taste of the beans to become less acidic and more delicious. After fermentation comes the drying step. The workers spread the cocoa beans on large slats in the sun to dry for about a week. During this period, the beans turn from wet to completely dry. After drying, the beans are carefully inspected to remove any remnants of pods or beans that are infected with mold or even contain defects. Non-conforming beans are sold locally at a lower price or used as fertilizer. The healthy beans that pass the inspection are weighed and processed for export to a chocolate maker. It takes about 300 to 600 cocoa beans to produce 1 kilogram of chocolate. 600 cocoa beans. The number depends on the size of the beans and the type of chocolate tree. It started with cocoa beans, which were used by ancient civilizations in Mexico, Central and South America to prepare a drink. When the Spaniards arrived in those areas, they brought this drink to Europe. Solid chocolate did not appear until 1847, when it was invented by a British company. In this factory, different types of chocolate are produced that are sold to companies that manufacture finished products, in addition to ingredients such as cocoa powder and cocoa butter. Most of the cocoa beans used here come from West Africa, which produces about 70% of the world's cocoa. The cocoa beans are transported via a conveyor to this cleaning system, which has a climate to store dirt like branches and stones. Next, the beans pass through a rotating drum called a small enlarging device, which improves the beans and softens their shells. The next step is to remove the shell using a machine called a winnower. This machine removes the shell from the beans through scoops and screens, and then a suction device is used to eliminate the small remaining shell pieces. The inside of the bean, known as the nib, is then exposed. In the factory, the nib is roasted to develop flavor. The nib contains more than 50% fat, which is cocoa butter. To make chocolate, the roasted nib is mixed with cocoa butter and sugar. In the case of milk chocolate, milk powder is added first. The nibs are ground to generate heat and friction, which melts the cocoa butter and turns the nibs into a soft chocolate called lycra chocolate. A portion of the cocoa butter is extracted at the factory to be sold as a separate ingredient or to be used in making chocolate in different combinations. To prepare dark chocolate, use larger quantities of chocolate syrup, sugar, and cocoa butter, but without adding milk powder. As for unsweetened chocolate, it does not contain any sugar. First, mix the ingredients in a blender until they turn into a very thick paste. Although the flavor is good, the texture is rough, which requires smoothing. So the chocolate goes to a machine called a refining machine, where it passes through 5 rollers that greatly reduce the particle size. After a few minutes, the chocolate comes out of the refining machine in the form of a fine dry powder. Usually chocolate is converted to a liquid state and transferred to a machine called a conche. Here friction and heat are used again to melt the cocoa butter. This process turns the powder into liquid chocolate. At this stage, additional cocoa butter is added to adjust the thickness of the mixture according to the final product. For the chocolate chip wrapping process, the chocolate is transferred from the conching machine to a machine called a drop dispenser. As the name suggests, this machine places drops of chocolate on a conveyor belt. The nozzle trays of the dispenser can be changed to produce chips of different sizes or shapes. Like the bells or the chocolate chips, which are still warm and soft, pass through a cooling tunnel. This journey takes about 5 minutes, during which the chips pass through several temperatures ranging from 30 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit, which is equivalent to 1 to 10 degrees Celsius. When the chips come out of the tunnel, they are completely solidified. After the chocolate is formed, it is transported via a conveyor belt that passes through a metal detector to ensure the safety of the product and that it is free of any metal impurities. The factory also produces large chocolate bars weighing about 10 tarts, or about 4.5 kilograms. The liquid chocolate is poured into plastic molds in the shape of the bars using a dedicated machine. The molds are then transferred via a conveyor belt to a trap system that moves inside a cold room for about 2 hours. This constant movement helps to circulate the air perfectly inside the room, which speeds up the cooling process. During cooling, the chocolate shrinks slightly, which makes the bars easily come out of the molds. The chocolate making process relies on many fine details and scientific techniques, as each step requires precision to achieve the final product that we enjoy. This brings us to the end of the video. If you're a chocolate lover, let us know in the comments that you love it, and we'll see you in the next video, God willing.